Good morning, everyone. Hello, Joan. Good morning, everyone. I'm Don Zavis, National Sales Trainer and Sales Coach. Want to welcome, you can go on and sit down. It's okay. Go on and sit down. Want to welcome you to our Friday session. If it is 9 o'clock in the old Pueblo, Mr. Waechter and I are likely going to be in front of this camera. So thank you so much. It's a privilege for us to be here. We know there's a lot of things in the world that are vying for your time, certainly time online. So if you're joining us on Facebook Live, thank you. If you're joining us on YouTube Live, thank you. If you're joining us in one of the archive sites, thank you as well. And if you're here in the studio audience, thank you again. We appreciate you being here. Mr. Waechter, what's happening in the world?
Oh, what's happening in the world is too political for sales.
It is.
Everything is political. Everything is political.
But
and it's hard to really, not get political with some of the things that are happening in the
I'm
world.
not political. I want everybody's money.
We talked
I don't care what your religion is, what your politics are. You write me a check, I will thank you, and I will guarantee to cash it.
We talked last time about the merger between the PGA and the Live Tour, which is Saudi Arabia money.
Yep.
And we also talked about the fact that the upcoming U.S. Open is one of the biggest tournaments worldwide ever.
Yep.
And today, on the second day of the U.S. Open, the Justice Department just basically issued an antitrust warning that that merger will never go through. So,
Play ball.
play ball. It's L.A., it's the center of the world, it's Hollywood, it's all that kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden, we're turning the golf world into a policy statement. And I don't know what that has to do with sales. It's just frustrating to me as a sports fan. And that's it.
And again, trying to be in the apolitical vein. But I do, however, believe, two fundamental things. Capitalism works 100% of the time. So if you are happy, support them. If you are unhappy, don't support them. If you have a product that you like, support it. If you have a product you don't like, for whatever reason, don't support it. Capitalism works 100% of the time. It is the purest, literally most grassroots way for your voice to be heard, as opposed to any other, in my opinion, any other mechanism on the face of the earth. So, that's kind of the extent of our political statements. However, it's very timely for today's session, because today's session is the psychology of sales.
Correct.
And for those that are taking notes, I want you to write this down. We're going to come out of the gate with this. You sell like you feel. So if you feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof, you're going to sell like you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. If you feel disheartened and you feel taken advantage of, or maybe you don't have a lot of confidence in yourself, maybe your company or maybe even your industry, that's going to manifest itself. And the illustration that we use to kind of use this is that imagine hypothetically you made the biggest sale you've ever made, the biggest sale in the history of your company. This sale is going to knock out all your numbers for the next 10 years in the future, and it's going to make you more money than you ever hoped you were ever going to make. The next person that you talk to will be the real you. The next person that you talk to, they're going to get the real you. Why? Because you've got money, you've got power, you've got success, you have no reason to be worried or desperate or concerned or blah, 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 blah. The next person they get is going to be the real you. So that's why when you talk to successful people, some are very open and communicative and honest, right? They've made their millions. They don't really need to be depressed or worried, Or on the other hand, they might be a little quirky and unique, and maybe in the beginning of their careers, they had to downplay their quirkiness and uniqueness, but now that they've hit some level of success, now they can kind of shine forth the candle power. So the idea of psychology of sales, and so much of what we do is what we call steeped in human dynamics. And what human dynamics essentially means is, given a certain set of stimuluses, most people will react the same way, right? So if we're in here and all of a sudden there's a big bang, there's a good chance we're all going to jump. It's just our natural, built-in, progressive way of doing it.
As the U.S. Open is now on its second round, everybody has to understand that.
Hey, Mitch.
Hey, Mitch, welcome. Every golfer has a golf team, and part of that golf team is a psychologist, a sports psychologist. And so this is nothing more than an extension of the U.S. Open that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, no, that's a very good parallel. Because again, so much of what we do and so much of how we sell is how we feel. You know, a lot of times, you know, some people have no problem grabbing that phone. They can make 200 calls. They can get 199 no's, but because they get that one yes, that propels them. Other people, it's like when they go to reach for the phone and my God, you think it's 400 pounds, right? They can't even lift it up. They know all the things they should be doing today. I should be doing this, I should be doing this, I should be doing this, I should be doing this. And yet they don't. And these things are 100% in their control. So we talk about today's session being an attitude session. And all of our sessions fall into one of three categories. They're either attitude, behavior, or techniques. So techniques is the words, right? That's, you know, Mrs. Jones, blah, blah, blah. That's the words. I can give you the words to say. I can tell you what to say. I can give you all the great one-liners. I can even teach you when and where to say it. That's the behaviors. What I can't do is I can't move your lips. And that's where the attitude comes in. There are some people that think their best times are in front of them. There are other people who think that their best times are behind them. And interestingly enough, they're both right. They're both right. If you believe it, it's going to happen. If you don't believe it, there's a very good chance you're going to struggle in the process of doing it. So the psychology of sales is going to be a very much introspective. It's going to be you. But, and we often say that sales coaching and training is not therapy. But a lot of the things that you're going to hear are psychological components that will have an effect on how you think, how you feel, what you look into, things of that. So we're going to start with, so anyone who's taken any kind of, you know, college entry-level psychology classes has learned about transactional analysis, TA. Now, TA was a big deal. It started to incubate in the 60s, then kind of came out. And the idea was, regardless of how old you are, who you are, men, women, young, old, doesn't make any difference. They have identified that you exist in one of three personality planes. You're either an adult, you're a parent, or you're a child. So you operate in one of these three personality statements, regardless of how old you are, man, woman, young, old, right, doesn't make any difference. You at any one time operate in one of these. So I'll give you an example. My child state is when I want to go fishing and Mrs. Zavis says no. Now I will tell you, I'm 61 years old. I should be able to go fishing if I want. Damn it!
I've heard you cry.
And you've heard me cry, right? And I'll give her a million reasons why I deserve to go fishing. She doesn't need any reasons. She just says, no, we got things to do. Now, again, I'm a grown man, but we all exist sometimes in that child. The parent state is in a lot of cases where I'm a parent, right? I have grandchildren. I have a daughter. You know, I have to be responsible. I have to be a pillar of society. You know, you want to be someone who people look up to and appreciate and honor and respect and all those things. So we operate in that parent state. And the last and final one is the adult state. The adult state says if I go out tomorrow night and get hammered, there's a really good chance I'm not going to be really good at 9 o'clock. I want to go out and get hammered, but there's a good chance that I'm not going to be good at 9 o'clock. And those are all the things that tell you to eat right and take your vitamins and sleep enough and, you know, don't do these, you know, hazardous activities. But the interesting thing about it when you're in a selling situation is you now have an interchange between two people that at any one time may be at one of those states. And those three states have different components to it. We have a nurturing state. Nurturing state. We have an adaptive state. We've got other states, but for our purposes, these are the two that are going to be the most important. Because that adaptive state is what gives us as adults the ability to understand changes in the world. That adaptive state is what gives us as a child the ability to change in the world. So if you think about it as an adult, when COVID kicked in, that changed everybody's world, right? It didn't matter who you were, where you were, how much money you had, you know, black, white, green, blue, young, old, man, what did make a difference? You're all screwed. Everybody is screwed across the board in exactly the same way. And now the world had to figure out a way to coexist. The kids had to figure out a way. Certainly the parents that had kids had to figure out, and we as adults did that. Now, when you're in a selling situation, you have the ability to co-create an environment. So when I say co-create, you have a role in it, certainly as a salesperson. But your prospect or your customer has a role in it as well. They get to select where they are, but we have the ability to kind of direct the conversation. So what you want is you want a nurturing parent to an adaptive child. Adaptive child. You want the nurturing parent as the salesperson. The adaptive child is the prospect. So when I say child, I don't mean to say that in a negative way. I'm not diminishing the adult nature of who and what they are. But what I'm saying is you will create a natural teacher or educational component. And when you have an adaptive child, that child is in a position to accept the things that you say. So when I'm speaking with someone, I don't talk to them like a child. Of course not. John and I are always respectful for our clients. But I will take the role of the nurturing parent. And there's language that we're going to talk about in the session that I'm going to encourage you to use in your conversations, because that language will help you create or co-create this kind of relationship. So if you think about it, a lot of times the first sale that's made is in your own mind. It's for you to make a conscious decision that you're going to look at sales as much as an art, which it is, at the same time as much as a science, which it is as well. Sure, because here's the science. I can tell you the words to say. I can help you create the scenario to say it. But the art is the part that's subjective. It's like I'm a musician, and you can give 5 musicians sheet music. If anybody reads sheet music or music, you can give 5 different musicians essentially the same sheet music. And although the timing's likely going to be the same, and maybe the notes and quality of the notes will be the same, but there's these little phrases that they add, these little uniquenesses that aren't written by the page. It's that stylization they do it and the way that they do it. That's the art part. And I often say, if you think of art, think of acting. Because I often tell people, if you can't act, you can't sell. Now that doesn't mean you're being disingenuous. That's not the case at all. But when you connect with somebody for the first time, they get whatever personality they need initially in the relationship. So as I've said in the past, I'm very gregarious. But if I'm speaking with somebody who's quiet and subdued, I got to turn down the candle bower down. Why? Because they're not going to feel comfortable, right? But if they're bouncing off the walls, I'm bouncing off the walls right with them. So when you think of that nurturing parent with the adaptive child, you're going to create and co-create that relationship where this child is open, willing to learn, open to coaching, willing to be instructed. And we, as a parent, aren't authoritative. We're not banging our slate and saying, you did it wrong, you did it wrong, you did it wrong. We're using language that's very nurturing. And in professional selling, the 3 most important words are nurture, nurture, nurture.
Which is a problem solver looking for problems to solve.
Oh, absolutely.
That's exactly what nurturing is all about in our little mantra of problem solving.
Absolutely.
And the green alignment here with a child is there's a problem there. We don't know what it is. We don't intend to know what it is. We just have to explore. So that's what a parent does.
Absolutely. And again, the nurturing parent. Now, we're applying this into a selling situation or an educational situation. This is the exact same program, however, for schools. So the schools that have adopted this transactional analysis program, they want that adaptive child, and they create scenarios that allow for that. You want the nurturing parent. Why? Because that nurturing parent, although it's authoritative and instructional, again, it's very positive and it's very nurturing. Because you've got such a cornucopia of different personalities, and we, for the people that are clients of ours, we do the predictive index, which talks about some of the great personality aspects of who and what you have, and it's the best tool we've been able to find for it. But if you think about all the personalities throughout the entire world, and now you potentially are going to have to sell to them, you better understand the psychology of them selling, or you're really going to struggle. And I think that's one of the reasons why most really professional salespeople and outstanding salespeople tend to close so much by percentage, so much more than other people, because they really make the science of understanding the motivation. What do they want? What's their, creating that transact. We talk about primary sensory dominance. The primary sensory dominance, and I'm just going to put sensory. Primary sensory dominance talks about, the personalities that people have. DISC. If you're looking at DISC, and that's been around for probably 40 years at this point in time, and you understand the influencers and the steady relators and the cautious thinkers, and the D types, and then you start looking at Briggs-Myers, and then IQ, and there's all kinds of diagnostic tests that are out there that will help you for those that are interested and they're taking the necessary steps. I'll give you a great example. We actually had in one of our mastermind sessions. So years ago, and that's how Larry and I first met, one of the people we had was a handwriting analysis person. And she was absolutely fabulous because as she took, and we had random samples of the people in the audience that were total strangers to her. And we actually had the samples that were written down, and she looked at the samples. And it was amazing how much she could glean just from the sample of the writing. Things as a salesperson, I would love to have known long before I went into my sale. Why? Because it's critically important. We play this wonderful role in a selling situation where this is one of the few things, maybe going to your doctor. When you go to your doctor, you assume your doctor knows more than you, right? You should, right? And he should too, by the way, hopefully, right? Sales is one of the only other areas that we don't necessarily have that, because I don't think the person over to In-N-Out Burger is smarter than me, right? I work with a lot of lawyers. Most of them I thought were clueless. You know, CPAs, architects, builders, you know, people that you would, you know, historically think are smart, and maybe they're smart in that one little sniggle of their world. But at the overall smartness of humanity, I'm like, yeah, I don't think they got it. But in our situation, we have this unique ability, and we call it okay, not okay. So for the people that are writing notes, I want you to write this down. Okay, not okay. When people come to us, historically it's because they have a problem. They have an issue, right? They need something, something's not right, something's broken, my roof is leaking. You know, they're coming to us likely with a problem. And we actually want that because that's the greatest likelihood of a sale, is if we're problem solvers looking for problems to solve. Right? So problem solvers looking for problems to solve. And that's why in some of our earlier sessions, you'll hear us say things that don't really seem like they make sense unless you examine them. If I want to sell aspirin, what do I have to do first?
Give them a headache.
Give them a headache. Exactly. I have to give them a headache because the people that we're talking to, when we meet with them, regardless of the date and time, they were probably having a good day, right? When you meet somebody who, you know, is thinking about buying or selling a house, right? They're having a good day, right? It's Arizona, it's beautiful, bright and sunny every single day, right? The people are wonderful, the climate is wonderful. They were having a good day. But I know that people buy emotionally. They'll justify it intellectually, but they buy emotionally. Now, how do I take this person, get them to buy emotionally for a new house when it's beautiful and bright and sunny outside? How do I create that sense of urgency that ultimately renders itself in a sale? So I have to take that person that was having a good day, and I got to make them sick. Then I got to turn them critical, and then I have to fix them. I have to help them understand, not sell them, not convince. There is no convincing. The only thing that I can do is help them discover that, you know what, not only is now a good time to buy or sell a house, but today is a good time to buy and sell a house. Today, of all the days, today is the day. And when you do that, I think you can put yourself in the ranks of the professional salesperson. Because when you have that person that has a problem, their natural inclination is not okay. Not okay, right? It could be real pain, like going to the doctors. Want to jump in?
Well, no, I think we're onto something there in the psychology of sales, because when you have the opportunity to drill down a certain problem of an individual that they don't know exists, that's really an uncoverable. That's a discovery problem.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's most people don't know how to do that.
You're right, they don't. And again, I'm going to go back to us as a professional salespeople to say the best thing for a customer or a prospect is a professional sales. We're the living brochure. The best thing for them is a professional salesperson. And the reason for that is because we're the supercomputer that can not only answer the questions you ask, but we can determine how best to answer the question so you understand it. So when you understand, your goal is to get them to what we call okayness, because they're coming to you not okay. This is what we hear. You insert your industry into this, right? I'm terrible in sales. And I hear that all the time. Oh my God, I suck. I'm terrible in sales. Now, if I was trying to get my needs met and for myself to feel better, I'm amazing anyway, so I don't have to do that, right? But if I was trying to get my own needs met, this is what it would sound like. Well, good thing you found me, and we're going to fix you, and I'm the best trainer in the world, and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't help them. So when they say, oh my God, I'm the worst salesperson in the world, you know what I say? Probably not. Probably not. I do this 7 days a week, right? You're probably exactly where you should be. And you can palpably see the stress, the frustration falling off of them, right? And all of the softening statement words that connect in with okayness. So if you think of softening statement words, these are the softening statement words. That's not unusual. Somebody comes up and says, you know, my business is really suffering, right? The economy, high price of gas, you know, what interest rates, what else is there? I mean, it's like every, you know, we've run out of shoes for the other shoe to fall. So when you tell somebody that thinks they're the only person in the world that's having that problem, say, you know what? I've seen you 1,000 times. I've seen you 1,000 times. That's not unusual, right? Every second person I talk to says that. And you can palpably see where they kind of float down. It's giving them that soft spot to land. It's having that person come to their aid on, you know, the white knight in the armor that says, I'm here to help you. Don't worry, we'll get this. Not going to be tomorrow, but you're going to get this. I say things like, you know what? I haven't lost a salesperson yet. I haven't lost a salesperson yet. And you can see the tension just flow right out of that, because what I want is for them to feel okay. They have to feel better in my presence. They have to feel energized and capable and competent. If they feel uncomfortable, unhappy, taken advantage of, not appreciated, not listened to, you think people are going to stick around? And it's interesting because this was a big deal in the religious community in the 80s. When this concept really came out, the religious community had to take this seriously, right? Because there was a whole world, and I'm Catholic, and everybody knows that, right? There was a whole world that their thing was, thou shalt not, right? That was us, right? We're Catholic. We are the poster children for thou shalt not. And everything was bad. My God smoted everybody, right? I don't know what smote exactly is, but it really sounded bad, right? We were fire and brimstone. We wiped out everybody. You know, I'd be like in front of God, like, really? You're going to send all this fire and brimstone on the puppies and kitties, right? Guinea pigs? Really? Everybody's going to go? But that was the world. But now they said, wait a second, that doesn't really make any sense. That doesn't kind of jive with religion as a whole. Maybe we should have a religion where it's okay to be imperfect. And you saw this catharsis take place in the 70s and 80s in a lot of the religious communities in the non-denominational. Now, the idea ultimately is they took a psychological component and they were able to spin it to a scenario where people had less defensive posture and ultimately were more open and receptive to ideas. So when you have a softening statement, and we have it all the time, right? People are like, you know, think of all the things people say to you just in the course of regular conversation. And all the things that we can say to make that a much more supportive area. Again, the soft spot to land. Don't worry, we're going to get there, right? Don't worry, we'll fix it. May not be tomorrow, but we're going to get there. And just the giving them the hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel will make them go. Again, what do we often say? People will not remember what you said. They may not even remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And if you made them feel bad, even one time, and even if you made them feel great 99 other times, they feel the one. They remember the one. They will always remember how you made them feel. And that's why when I start my selling process with people, I don't bring anything in. I'll bring in my padfolio. I'm like, I got a pencil and I got a blank sheet of paper. Go. And that's it. And you just let them talk. They'll talk about anything under the sun that they want. But eventually they'll feel validated. They'll feel listened to. Don't worry, we'll get around to me. But I need to make them feel okay. I need to make them feel and legitimately feel that Don will help me. He's a good guy. He's a person of ethics and character. He's not going to take advantage of me, and that's a critical aspect. And that's why the psychology of sales is such an important tool, because it has nothing to do with who's the highest price. It has nothing to do with your product. It has nothing to do with your time in business. It has nothing to do with the industry or price of gas or interest rates or any of the other things that affect business all the way down the line. If you get this, all those things are meaningless, right? My clients never go out for competitive bid. Why? Because I don't bid. I'm telling you I'm going to be the highest price. If you're going to go out for competitive bid, it's not going to be me. And yet they never do. Why? Because they have this. We're at this point, and that's why. So John, when you like softening statements, I mean, I know there's a lot of them. Any additional ones you want to throw in?
Well, sure. Whenever you meet somebody and they remind you of somebody, you say, well, you remind me of my cousin, and you don't do it artificially, but you just absorb the moment and just, there's all kinds of, you remind me of my cousin, you remind me of my father, you remind me of whatever, it's just, those are all kind of softening statements that start to basically break down any artificial barriers that might be there.
Yeah, you sell like you feel. Interestingly enough, they buy like they feel. So if they feel comfortable with you, buying is a foregone conclusion. If they don't feel comfortable with you, and again, the price has nothing to do with it, the industry, your product, your widget, none of those things mean anything. It's how they feel. They will buy when they feel validated and listened to. So let's keep going. We've got a lot to go on this thing. So identity versus roles. This is a big one. Identity versus roles. And I'm going to reach over here and shut off my phone here so it doesn't keep dinging for us.
Good timing.
Yeah, really, exactly. I'm going to wait till it stops dinging. So now we're going to send, this is the psychology of you, so follow along with me, because this is going to be probably the top line of the technical things that we'll talk about in class, okay? But most people get their identity from their role, from their work, their business, something like that. Here's the illustration. You make a big sale, how do you feel? You feel good. You lose a big sale, how do you feel? You feel bad, exactly. So your role is dictating your identity. I do good, I feel good. I do bad, I feel bad. And the problem in sales specifically with this is that sales is what we call an environment of want. An environment of want, W-A-N-T. There's never enough prospects. There's never enough time. There's never enough phone calls, hours in the day, emails that you can do, posts that you can make. There's always more that most salespeople want. So when we say it's an environment of want, it's because there's always more that you want than what is ever practical for you to get. If you had five new prospects today, you want 10. If you make a giant sale today, you want 2 giant sales tomorrow. It's that we, by de facto of who we are never satisfied. And I think that's what propels us forward. So when you think of the identity versus role concept, the idea is, again, if you do good, make a sale, you feel good. You lose a sale, you feel bad. Now, the flip is actually the way to do it. So if you think of it like this, instead of doing good, feeling good, what if you feel good, and as a result of feeling good, you do good? You're happy and you're relaxed and you're capable. There's a great little illustration, kind of a funny story that I like to use. I love to use Tiger Woods. Now, again, I know he's not anything like he was in years past, but Tiger was the man. I mean, that was it. I mean, everybody was fighting for second place. No one expected to win, right? They weren't calling their wife and saying, look, there's $1 million on the board. Here's what they were saying. Well, listen, Tiger's getting $1 million, but I'm going for $300,000. That's me. Because nobody expected to beat Tiger Woods. But it was interesting. If you ever watch golf, and if you ever want to go to sleep, watch golf, because they're guaranteed to do it, right? But if you watch golf on Thursday, right, the matches are usually on the weekend. But if you watch the golf on Thursday and Friday and stuff, and like ESPN and places do that, the interesting thing about it was it's never the people that they expect to win are actually the head of the leaderboard on Thursdays and Fridays. It's not like, Woods, Mickelson, blah, blah, blah. No, it's, Billy Bob Smith from Podunk, Arkansas. People are like, who the hell's Billy Bob Smith, right? And he's the head of the leaderboard on Thursday. Now, if you could think about what's happening Thursday night, right? So now Billy Bob Smith is sitting at the end of his bed in his hotel room. And this is what Billy Bob Smith, this is Billy Bob's words. Oh my God, I'm beating Tiger Woods. Oh my God, I'm beating Tiger Woods. Oh my God, I'm beating Tiger Woods. And what do you think he does the next day? Bombs, exactly. Can't find the ball second, because when he got there the first day, he was just happy to be on the tour. He was never expecting to beat anybody. Everybody was going to kick his ass. And he was told, hey, Mom, I'm on the tour, right? Hey, you know, there's 30 guys here. Even if I come in 30th, I get 20 grand, right? He's spending his 20 grand on a new motorcycle or something. He never expects to be anywhere on the leaderboard. But now that he's beating Tiger Woods, the next day he comes. And he chokes, and he alters it, and he's like, I can't be this good. And not surprisingly, as a result of making those changes, he doesn't do as well the next consecutive days. Now, same night, right? Thursday night. Tiger's probably got a better hotel room, right? And Tiger's sitting at the end of his giant palatial, bed, and this is what Tiger's saying. I got beat by a kid from Arkansas. I got beat by a kid named Billy Bob. And his last name is Smith. Tiger, what the hell are you doing? You're a better golfer than this. And what do you think happens to Tiger the next day? He comes back, exactly. So it isn't a situation where you do good, you feel good. Here's the kid, Billy Bob, that did good. He feels terrible. And now you get Tiger Woods. He did bad, and now he feels better. It's not do good, feel good. It's not make a sale, feel good. It's feel good, and as a result of that, make a sale. I believe that every person that meets me is going to love me, right? Now, occasionally there might be 1 out of a million that don't. It's very unlikely. It's very small, all right? But John, you probably haven't seen the example, but there are some, sure, I'm sure, right? But the idea ultimately is when you go into that, and I don't mean like the false belief, like really in the back of my mind I know the truth. No, I don't. To me, in my mind, that's the truth. But the interesting thing happens is, again, when you feel good, you do good. Now, but you understand that feel good doesn't mean make every sale. Even in the feeling good area, right? Even in the feeling good area, we know we can't make every sale. We'll make the appropriate amount. We'll make the ones that we deserve. So we have a little bit of a gauge that I'm just going to put here on the board, and I want you to try to follow it, okay? And I'm going to write it like this. So I'm going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Each one of these bands is somebody different. The top band are what we call natural winners. These are winners. This is the Tiger Woods. This is the guy who's not going to lose. He's just not going to lose. Right? If there was a contest on who could throw this marker farther, tonight, when you guys are all gone, I'd be in the parking lot throwing this marker. Because winning is learned. Winning is learned. That's why Tom Brady will go from one sport and he'll be great at another sport. Or this guy who's great at this by some, the guy who's great in chess is great in blackjack. Winning is learned. You understand what you have to do. Dedication and hard work and perseverance and practice and what the hell else should we add into that?
Be out in the world.
Be out in the world, right? These are all the things you know, but the winners have them. And those are those top 3 people. So if you had to close your eyes right now, and on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 means you're an absolute perfect person right now, right? You're perfect, wouldn't change a thing. I'm happy the way I am. My life's not perfect. Not perfect. But I got a great life, right? Not perfect, but I got a great life. And you close your eyes and you give yourself your own evaluation. 1 means things are great, I'm great, world's great. If tomorrow was the same as today, I would call it a blessing. 10 means everything sucks and go down. Now, if you gave yourself that gauge, most people won't be 1, 2, and 3 because they think that's boastful, right? They think that's, gratuitously over the top. So they're going to go in the 4, 5, and 6. Now, the 4, 5, and 6 people, and by the way, I'm going to tell you up front, you're all ones. You're all ones. Every single one of you. Every single one of you is perfect. If I stripped your role, you're not a mom, You're not a dad. You're not a brother. You're not a sister. You're not an employee. You're not an employer. You're not a parent. You're not a neighbor. If I take every single role away from you right now, you are only left with the pure essence of you. And your pure essence can't be anything else other than a one. Your pure essence cannot be anything less than perfect. Again, I'm taking every role. You're not a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, an employer, an employee, religious, non-religious, colored, nothing. Nothing. I take every role away from you. You cannot be anything less than perfect. It is our roles that we use to define us wrongly, but it's our roles that we use to define us. So the top people are the natural winners. These are the people that are going to win no matter what. No matter what, to them losing it just is not possible. The middle band is what we call the at-leasters. Okay? These are the at-leasters. Okay? I may not live in a $10 million house, but I'm not going to live in a cardboard box either, right? I may not be as good as this guy, but at least I'm not as bad as that guy. They live in this world of mediocrity. Now, by the way, you're all ones. You're all this. You let your roles give you these. You're all this right now. And there's a whole world of these at-leasters. These are the people that maybe want more out of the world, and they know they can get it. They're not ready to try yet, but they know there's something more for them. The bottom three is what we call the psychological losers. Now, when I say loser, I'm not making a value judgment on their humanity or anything like that. Drug addicts, alcoholics, criminals, people that know what right is and for whatever reason choose not to do it. Their natural dispensation is towards things that are bad. But it's interesting because I work at Santa Rita Prison and at Weston Prison right here in Tucson. And I'm blessed to be able to work in the call center with the inmates. A lot of these criminals are really freaking smart. I'm like, dude, when you get out, call me, right? Because if they just took any of this organizational genius to make this great drug empire, and I'm like, dude, if you just sold Amway, you'd make a shitload, right? But they don't think like that. They're not programmed for that. They've got a lot of programming, a lot of good programming. So your roles do not identify who you are. Everybody is perfect. You're already the perfect person. You allow your roles to dictate who you are. And that's why it's so critical to understand it's not do good, feel good. It's not make a sale, feel good, lose a sale, feel bad. No, it isn't do good, feel good. It's feel good, do good. Because if you feel great and people sense that and feel it and know that you're honest and you're ethical and you're kind and loving and blah, 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 whatever you want to add to it, making a sale becomes very, very easy because there's no defensive posture in them, right? There's no threat. They sense nothing negative about you. They understand that you really subscribe to that win-win philosophy as part of the nature of who you are.
The psychology of sales is all about how to feel good.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
yes.
So I mean, have you ever tried to sell anything to anybody when you're having a really bad day or a down day or you're not feeling well physically? It's almost always non-successful. When, you know, so you gotta be able to put yourself in a position of feeling good about yourself, feeling confident about your product, your service, whatever it is. It's really important in the psychology of sales.
Yeah, again, so much of selling is how you feel. So much of buying is how they feel. And yet most salespeople don't really give the necessary investment of the time, research, education, science to be in that. So, and that's why we often talk about roles. In a selling situation, there's one of two roles. You can be the salesperson, you can be the customer. Now, historically, when you're the salesperson is the protagonist. The salesperson is the one that wants something, right? They want to make the sale. If you go to every salesperson and say, do you want to make every sale? Every salesperson is going to say, yes, of course. So in most selling relationships, the protagonist is the salesperson. And the antagonist would be then the customer. right? But what if you shifted the roles? What if I now became the person that may not want it? And I position, and the only other place to go is the customer that does want it. So here's what it sounds like. I'll say, Bob, I don't know if I can help you, but I'll make a deal with you. All right, take me out to lunch, tell me your woes, and if I can help you, I will. Right? No place shitty, I don't go shitty places for lunch. Now that almost like borderlines rude, doesn't it? That sounds like, wow, what a dick thing to say. No, it's not. It's not at all. Because the idea of the no free lunch, right? If I take you out to lunch, what in the back of your mind do you think? He wants something from me. Because there's no free lunch? You're right, it's not. You're taking me out. I now become the person that wants the relationship the least. Bob, I got to tell you right up front. You're probably looking at about 10 grand, and it's going to be it's doable, but it's going to be really, really hard. I don't know if I can help you. I really don't. Convince me what I can do to make you guys better. Think of all the language that sounds like, because if I put on my salesperson jacket, they put on their customer jacket, which means if I start acting like a salesperson, they're going to start acting like a customer. Go ahead, Mitch.
Let me see if I'm a good fit for you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, see, now I go one step further, and don't say this. Don't say this. If you're listening, don't say this. This is a Donism. Only I can say this. Here's what I say. You might be a pain in the ass and screw up my perfect world, and I don't want you. Now think about that. What salesperson in their right mind is going to say that? And I say it all the time. Why? Because you might screw up my perfect world. If you're a pain in my ass now, you're not going to get better. And when you start paying me, if anything, you're going to get worse. And when you talk like that to somebody, I'm not saying be vulgar, I'm not saying be mean, I'm not saying be combative. But what I am saying is that I can't blow smoke at you. I can't want it more than you do. I can't, not every client is a good client. And I think I'm saying that poorly, but that's the idea.
It's very true. Your customer's not always right.
Customer's rarely right. Customer's rarely right. And again, I can't say that without putting the rest of it on, because they don't know what they don't know, right? The customer isn't right. The customer is rarely right because they don't know what they don't know. Why would you put the person entrusted with being the right on the side of the person who knows the least? Now, the only thing we say about the customer is hardly right, but they are always the customer. And they do bear a certain amount of responsibility and respect because of being a customer. But when I'm the nurturing parent, here's what it sounds like. Bob, I got all the time we need. I'm going to light my second cigar. That means I've already tacked 45 minutes on to whatever you did, right? I'm going to bill you for it, right? But I just lit a new cigar, so now it's 45 minutes. Go, right? There's no pressure. There's no time. There's no ticking clock. You'll get there when you get there. But the interesting thing about it is when you don't put any pressure for time, they tend to get there really quick, right? When they don't feel like, because a lot of people use time, right, as kind of that stall and objection. When it's like, I got all the time in the world. It's amazing how things quickly go through. So again, if I'm going to be in that position where I'm going to put on my salesperson jacket, they're going to put on their customer jacket, and as a result of that, we're now going to have tension. We're going to have tension. I tell people all the time, this is true. I do business with about 2 out of every 10 people I talk to. So if I talk to 10 people about the possibility of doing training and coaching, of that 10, I will only likely do business with 4. Excuse me, I'll only do business with 2. Of the 8 that I don't do business with, half aren't a fit for me. They're bitching about the money, they're whining about it, they're telling me all the reasons they can't do it, and I'm like, you know what, dude, I'm not your guy. Go. You can go broke for free, right? Just save like a couple $1,000 for the bankruptcy attorney, but you can go broke for free. You don't need me for that.
Sometimes they have a need, but they're not a match. I've
Absolutely, sure.
there's somebody better.
And exactly. So the
Happens
idea
all the
is,
time.
yeah, out of the 8 people I don't do business with, I'm not a fit for 4 of them, right? I'm not a fit for them. I'm too much. I'm a pain in the ass. Blah, whatever reason, I'm not a fit for them. They're not a fit for me.
You don't have to
Right.
like them even.
Well, but see, here's the fun, and I agree. And there was a time in my career where I felt like that. I'm not there right now. If I don't like you, I will not spend 1 second with you, because what I realized at 61, almost 62 on August 4th, is time is the true wealth. Time is the true wealth. Right now, I would give up everything to be with my grandkids and my wife and my daughter and my son-in-law, period. I don't care. I would walk away from super lucrative speak. I'm going to be with my grandkids. I already told you, I'm going to be there on the 23rd of July through, or excuse me, 23rd of June through 3rd of July. You could come to me and say, I will give you $20,000 to speak for 60 minutes. I'm like, yeah, not going to happen. Not going to happen. The old Don, 10, 15, 20 years ago, oh my God, I would have left my wife at the altar to get a check, right? Not now. But it also took me 61 years to get there. And that's why there's so much that comes into the psychology of sales. And again, the first sale is between your own ears. I'll give you one that straightens up everybody's spine. If you feel it, say it. If you feel it, say it. Feel it, say it. Now, don't be argumentative. Don't be combative. Don't be mean. But if somebody says something stupid, you can say, Bob, if in the course of our conversation you happen to say something that I haven't had the experience that it's true, would you be okay if I maybe called you on it? And I've said it 1,000 times. They say, sure. So if Bob starts to say something stupid, I'm going to say, Bob, remember the beginning of the conversation I said if I happen to come across something that I didn't agree with? Yeah, it's right now. That's stupid. That's stupid. Why does that make any sense to me? People will call me all the time, especially at the end of the year. September, October, November, December. And here's what they'll say. We got to do something about our sales. We didn't meet our year-end numbers. Nobody's getting a bonus. Problem. Didn't make our quota. Problem. And I say, well, listen, you got a couple months left. I don't know if John and I can help you, but we'll give it. Here's what I say. Well, we're probably not going to do anything till after the first of the year. Yeah, that's the same look I have, right? Like, so how does that make sense, right? You're not going to make your quota. Problem. But you know what? I really don't want to fix the problem. It would be like you getting a diagnosis of cancer, right? Doctor says you have cancer. It's the 1st of December. And you say, geez, Doc, it's the holidays. We're busy. Family, we're doing stuff. I'll catch up with you in January. If they just told you you had cancer, what would you say? I'm leaving this office. You're going to hook me up to something and start pumping away. I don't care what it is. I don't care if I glow in the dark. I want everything you have, as much as you have, as long as you have it, and I want it now. Because that's what you would say if it's important to you. So when you say, we didn't make our numbers, we didn't make our quota, problem, and then you say, yeah, we're not going to worry about the problem for a month or two. That's stupid. I'm not your guy, right? Find somebody else because you've already told me. I can't hear what you say because your actions speak so loud. You say it's important, and then you do nothing to fix it. So if you keep again, the psychology of sales, a lot of this is the art of selling, not necessarily the science of selling. This is the art of selling. It's hearing the things, and it's understanding the motivation and psychology of the people and what they do. So if you feel it, say it. Don't be mean. Don't be argumentative. Don't be combative. But if somebody says something that doesn't make any sense, you can say, I've been doing this a long time, and I got to tell you, I've never had anybody say that. How does that make sense to you? Because if you really have a cooperative, open, and engaging conversation, you should be willing to say things to the contrary of the other person, right? Because I'm trying to sell you doesn't mean I'm going to be stupid and agree to stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Well, you got to stick with reality. Okay, in another week or two, 2023 is going to be half over.
Yeah.
Half over.
Yep.
How is everyone doing? Are they on their annual goals? Are they halfway through? If they have an X amount of goal setting for the whole year, are you halfway through it, or are you more than halfway through it? Are you still way behind? That's why we start reminding everybody in our client base now that half the year's already gone. And so the psychology of sales is basically saying, wake up, people, because it's just not gonna happen unless you work with us and make it happen. And so,
absolutely. Again, you can, it's the Yoda, right? Do or do not, there is no try. And the beautiful thing about it is none of this costs any money. There's not one thing I've written on this board that will cost you one dime. And yet, in fact, in most cases, it costs you less money. than other alternatives you are. Interestingly enough, in this next one, John and I are the only ones that talk about this, and this is one of the strongest psychological components that's out there. It's nostalgia. If you don't understand the value of nostalgia, you will struggle. Nostalgia basically allows you to put people into a place where they feel naturally comfortable, and I don't have to know where that place is. I'll give you a great example. Around Christmas time, most places are playing Christmas music. They're not playing Christmas music made in 2020, right? They're playing Christmas music made when? 60s, 50s, White Christmas, right? Late 40s, right? Even the newer Christmas, right? The All I Want for Christmas by Mariah Carey. Do you know when that was made? 40 years ago.
Why don't you remind us?
In the 80s.
Give us a
Please,
quick
you
verse.
suck. No, he does this shit to me. All right, but the idea is if I'm talking to somebody and I want to get them to a place where they're psychologically malleable, and that doesn't mean we take advantage of them. I want to make sure that I'm not doing this to take advantage of them. What I am doing is I'm trying to get their defensive posture down to a point where we can have an open and conscious competition or conversation. So if I'm talking to somebody and they just open their business, I'd say, Bob, when you opened your business 10 years ago, where'd you think you'd be now? Where'd you think you'd be now? And the interesting about, I would have 5,000 employees and 14 different sites and a private jet and a yacht and blah, 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 right? And he has a strip center with 4 employees, and none of the things panned out the way that they would like them. But in his mind, just going back to the nostalgia, tell me about your first house. I don't want to hear about your $5 million house. I want to hear about your first house. And the funny thing about it was, watch their face. When you ask my wife about our first POS apartment, all right, we will both smile. It was tiny. It was small. It was in a marginally crappy area, right? We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of anything. But I was happier there than I've been in houses that were, 100 times more money. Our first apartment was our first apartment. That was like my little castle, my little 1-bedroom castle. And if you ask me about that, I'm going to smile. You ask me about the last giant house that I had before I moved here, it's like, yeah, it's a house. It's like my first car. My first car was a 1976 Camaro. Now, that was a big deal in 1978. I had mags inside. My car kicked ass. I love that car. I paid $6,000 for that car at a time in 1978 when $6,000 was a lot of money, right? My Land Rover is like 15 times that. I would trade that Land Rover like that to get my Camaro back. I constantly look for it. If I could find it, I would buy it in a second. Why? Because that's what I cared about. My first vacation, where you went to grade school, right? I don't care how rich you are, how famous you are, anything. I take you back to your grade school, you're that again. I don't care who you are, right? I often say that with the right application of bonfire and alcohol, I can make every person 18 years old again. And I believe it because it's true, and I do it all the time. You'd be right there, Joan. You would be so there. Because why? Because we're all this, right? We're all that 10, 12, 13-year-old kid that wants somebody to take care of us, wants somebody to have the answers in our hard, cruel world. Nostalgia is a big deal. Nostalgia for everything. And yet most people in sales don't understand that your goal in the psychology of sales is to make that person this. Well, the only way that I can make you into a child is if I bring you back in time. Nostalgia. Look at everything. We're coming into the 4th of July, all right? Look at all the stuff that comes out for the 4th of July, right? It isn't new and fancy and fandangled and the biggest and the brightest and the sparkliest and everything. A lot of times it's the simplest. Hot dogs and hamburgers, all right? It's not sushi and, lamb skewers. It's hot dogs and hamburgers. And the person that would never eat hot dogs and hamburgers on the 4th of July, you got to have them. You got to have them. You got to have beans with them. You might hate beans and you might hate hot dogs and you might not eat them the whole year. But you're going to then. You're going to take out all the Christmas ornaments that you had for 50 years and your mom had for the 50 years before that. And at that moment, you're going to pick out your mom's ornament and you're going to remember when you were 3 and put that on the tree. You don't think I can sell that person? I could absolutely, when you think of what people pay for nostalgia, enormous. Disney World is a great example. I'll make sure I stay on our time. Disney World is a great example. And John and I do an entire session about this. What business is Disney World in? Now, most people think theme park, right? You think because it has rides, right? No. They're in the memory business. If they were in the theme park business, you know what they'd want? Newer and faster and bigger roller coasters. No, not Disney World. When I come 30 years in the future, I want the teacup ride right there. Right? I want it right there. I don't want Space Mountain to change. When I go to the Haunted Castle, I want it to be exactly the same when I took my daughter 30 years ago. And when I take my grandsons later this year, I want to sit in the exact same car. I don't even want a new car. I don't want to see a different thing. I don't even want a ghost. When I go around the corner, I want to know what ghost is going to be there. They are in the nostalgia business. And that's why when you look on the floor in Disneyland, it's like picture spot. Picture spot. Again, they're in the nostalgia business. And grandparents, of which I am, and parents of which I was, will pay any amount of money, and we don't care. We don't care, right? We'll pay $500 a night for a hotel and be happy that we got it, right? We're going to pay $35 for ears for everybody. Why? To get the picture that I can look at 30 years in the future. Nostalgia sells, but yet most people don't understand that. The psychology of sales says if I'm going to make you into this adaptive child, I first got to get you there. I got to get you there. I want to talk about all the things that you did when you were young, favorite foods, first pets, all the stuff that's going to help you time travel back. And I'm just going to be going along with you. Now think about that. If I do that right, you think it's hard to make a sale? No, because I'm sitting there right with you, right? We're looking at your Christmas tree when you were 6. We're talking about the first day of school. I tell people all the time, tell me about your first job. Oh my God, it sucked. It was terrible, blah, blah, blah. But while they're telling me it sucks, it's terrible, they're smiling. Big, giant grin, even the job that they hated. They're now telling me, I always tell people, realize that although today sucks, it's the good old days tomorrow. The good old days tomorrow. It's my grandparents that grew up during they're passed away now, but they grew up during World War II. Those are the good old days. Great-grandparents during the Depression. Those are the good old days. They didn't know they were poor. Everybody was poor. The terrible times we're having now are the good old days of tomorrow. And if you understand how powerful the psychology is related to sales, and you understand how to harness it, not manipulate it, that's a wrong word. You can harness it by understanding the value of nostalgia. Let's keep going. I want to make sure we get anything. Anything you want to throw onto that pile there, Johnny?
Yeah, because as a salesperson, sometimes nostalgia doesn't present itself, so you have to create the environment for nostalgia. You know, where did you grow up? You know, some of this is the first conversation when you meet a new prospect or you want to learn more about a current prospect. You just start asking nostalgic questions. Where'd you grow up? What kind of, where'd you go to college? Or all that kind of stuff. And you can start to look at that when you walk into a person's office and you can see their certificates on the wall. You can see that they're a Tennessee Volunteer fan or whatever the case may be. You just have to observe, ask, and take them into that
Absolutely.
situation that is nostalgia.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, the psychology of sales is such, if you understand the motivations, if you understand that given a certain set of stimuluses, people will respond the same way. Again, illustrated earlier in the session by saying, if there was a loud bang in the room, we would all jump. Now, I didn't say, hey, but listen, when you hear a loud bang, you jump. You just do that naturally. But I know enough about psychiatry, I know enough about psychology, as which I suggest that you all do, right, at a cursory level to understand. You're selling a person. That person has all kinds of head trash and thoughts and defensiveness, and you've inherited every bad experience that they have. And again, it isn't just your product and your price and you. It's your product, your price, or you, and you're sharing their head with all of the millions of other things that were in your head long before you ever got there, which you, as a professional salesperson, have to manage to get through that quagmire to a point where you're actually going to be able to do. Another concept that we talk about is the idea of abundance versus scarcity. There's a world of people out there that wrongly believe a lot of things. I'm never going to have a $100,000 car. I'm never going to send my kids to private school. I'm never going to live in $1 million house. I'm never going to see the pyramids. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to. They've decided that it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And unfortunately, that limiting behavior, that self-limiting ideology is its own manifestation. If you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can't. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy and one's going to be hard. No, that's not the way at all. I tell you, getting rich is hard. It's a full-time, 7-day-a-week, 10-hour-a-day job. That's why so few people do it. But if you embrace the idea of abundance as opposed to the idea of scarcity, again, in a psychological situation, it gives the opportunity for people to believe that maybe, just maybe, I can. There's a world of people out there that believe that the dollar that I got was taken from them in some way, shape, or form. So if I get $1, therefore John doesn't have $1. Well, the reality of that to me is wrong. I believe there's an unlimited amount of money and happiness and success and sunsets and smiles and children's laughter and fuzzy kittens and cute puppies. There's an unlimited amount of all that if you believe it. If you believe there's an unlimited amount, getting there is not a problem. But if you don't believe it, then you are going to consistently struggle thinking that there is this finite pool of everything. And there really isn't. Now, part of the job of a coach and trainer, certainly a sales coach and trainer, is to help the person that they're working with believe that that pot of gold does actually exist. And you do that by working on the infinite, right? The same person says, I'm never going to have a $10 million house. And I would say, well, what would you do if you won a $1 billion lottery? Well, I'd buy a $50 million house. Oh, okay, so you're not going to have a 10, you're going to have a 50. The 50 makes sense, right? The 50 is totally doable, right? But the 10's not, right? Because again, in their mind, they're correlating lottery, house. They're correlating some outside factor with something. I start a new job, I therefore get this. I open a new business, I therefore get this. Part of what we need to be able to do, because we are problem solvers looking for problems to solve, is help our clients understand that what they want is not as impossible as they once thought it would be. They were convinced it was never going to happen, and we can sit down and say, no, this is, it's not easy, but potentially this is how that it could happen. So when you believe in the abundance philosophy, and again, we talk about in the psychology of sales, given a certain set of stimuluses, people will be. So anybody knows anything about cognitive behavior therapy, that's the bottom component of cognitive behavior therapy. It's the belief that things will get better. That although you feel like your lot in life is terrible, and you're never going to go anywhere, and you're never going to have success, and you're going to go from one destroyed business unsuccessfully to the next, no. It's never how many times you fall down, it's always how many times you get up. And when you talk to someone who is a serial entrepreneur, that even if they've had a string of lack of successful businesses, you look at the Edisons of the world and the Fords of the world and all of these titans of industry, the Rockefellers, where they've had just a whole slew of failures that ultimately manifested itself with an inevitable success. And that was because they understood that there was always more, there's always more, there's always more, there's always more. And when you can get your person in that mindset, when you can get your prospect in that mindset, making the sale is not that difficult at all. They already believe it's absolutely doable. You're just helping them facilitate how that moves through the process. All right, we got one more. Any questions about it? I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. Some of it is more technical and drier, but anybody we need to stop and kind of circle back on any one thing? Yes, Larry.
On resistance.
Yes.
There was a time, I think maybe last week, when you were saying, okay, maybe you're not the salesperson for this person.
Okay.
How do you know when to give into the resistance versus?
Well, resistance, in my opinion, only comes when you have two contrary foes. When you've got two people that are on the contrary, that's when you get resistance. As soon as I jump on your side, there's no more resistance. So when you tell me all the reasons why you can't do it, I'm like, okay, you convinced me, you can't do it. That's it, you can't, you're right, you can't do it. But the interesting thing about it is now, when I'm on your side, you want to be on the other side. All right? So when the person comes up and they give me any pushback, and what's the answer to any pushback? Don't do it. Keep doing what you're doing right now. Right? So, oh my God, that's a lot of money for sales training. Okay, don't do it. Keep doing what you're doing now. right? That's free. You know, I'll tell you what, I keep padlocks in my briefcase. I'll sell you one for $10 when you go out of business. Now, I would never say for you to say that. I would absolutely say that. Why? Because I don't believe that anybody benefits from getting smoke thrown at them, right? If your business keeps going down and down and down, inevitably you're going to be out of business. You know that. It's not like I'm telling you something that you probably haven't thought yourself. So when somebody gives me any kind of pushback, the answer is always the same. Don't do it. Keep doing what you're doing. Right? So now, again, now where you had differing sides, salesperson and customer, now I'm jumping both on the customer side. Don't do it. Don't spend your money. Keep doing what you're doing. And what does that person say? Well, I can't. I got to do something. So now they're jumping on the salesman side, and now they're saying, well, I got to do something, and I'm saying, don't do something. Right? Keep your money. You already told me money's tight, right? It's going to be $5,000 for me because this isn't St. Zavis. Right? You know, this is Don Zavis Sales Training. We're a for-profit business. I know a lot of businesses that started as for-profit businesses didn't seem to end up there, right? Because they lost the idea of the prize. So any pushback is always the same. Don't do it. Keep doing what you're doing, regardless of whatever we're doing. Because I know that if I try to convince them, now they got somebody to fight with. Well, that's a lot of money. Well, Mr. Jones, really it's not. It's only a cup of coffee a day. Really, you know, 5 hours a week, that's a lot of time. Yeah, but Mr. Jones, if you really think about it, it's only, 61 seconds per minute. No, that doesn't make any sense. If they say it's a lot of money, go, yeah, it's a lot of money. Right? It takes a lot of time. Yeah, it takes a lot of time. It is what it is. I'm not going to be opposite. I'm jumping on your side. Because if I stay here long enough on your side, you know what you're going to do? You're going to jump to the other side, and you're going to try to sell me on why it is. And it's interesting because, and that is a very strong psychological component, right? It's even the understanding that you have a problem. You know, it's interesting, and you see this a lot. And again, I don't want to profess that sales training and coaching is therapy. But the first thing that every psychiatrist that I've ever connected up with, socially, in any capacity, you see them on TV. They sit down in front of a shrink, and what does the first thing the shrink says? What's wrong with you? Why are you here? How can I help you? No different than me, right? How can I help you? I don't know if I can, right? The shrink doesn't say, that's it, you're on the road to recovery. Pays your lucky. It's like, I don't know if I can help you. What's going on? Why are you here? Why do you think you need to talk to a psychiatrist, right? Not, oh, I already know the answer, right? No, of course not. Again, you got to be on their side. And when they're telling you it's a lot, it is a lot. If it's hard to do, it's hard to do. If it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of time. I'm not going to fight with you. Why? Because I know if I fight with you, I'm going to create a situation where I'm likely not going to get anything, right? If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And in my case, and in John's case, if it's not, we're not going to make a sale. When do I want to find out? Right away. Absolutely, right away. So the psychology of sales essentially says when the other half of the party that is critical in a selling situation has all of these ideas and backgrounds and experiences and head trash, and some of it's right, some of it's wrong, doesn't make a difference. We take people as they present. Whoever you are, we get you as you show up. Right? It's good, bad, warts and all. The idea is before I get into my selling situation, I better do everything I can to at least get you back to square one, get you to a point where you don't have a giant defensive posture. So all the things behind me and the techniques we're talking about and the ideas is all attitudinal. It's you have to feel comfortable implementing them. If you feel comfortable implementing them, I guarantee they'll work. It's just a question of you need to feel comfortable in the implementation, and most people don't. Most people, they're so anxious to talk to you. They want to talk about their Nimbus 3000 and open their binder and like, well, here, let me show you. They got a 900-page binder and they go to page 1. Page 2, and you're like, oh shit, this is going to go on forever. No, it doesn't.
One of the things I want to add here is very simply that when conflict resolution, regardless of the sales situation, it doesn't work for you or for the prospect or whatever relationship you're in, different circumstances will create different answers. So never lose sight of those little non-victories. Always make sure that you keep those situations in your mind because a no 6 months ago might very easily be a yes today.
Oh, absolutely.
And part of the psychology of sales is resisting the idea to just forget that episode that happened a while back, just forget about it and never look back on it at all. But no, you got to learn from that and figure out that basically, hey, that person that didn't buy that house 6 months ago, well, you know, that's a whole new attitude maybe now. COVID taught us a lot about that. The things that happened pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic can be totally different because people were all freaked out for 2 years on how to act, how to behave, how to buy, how to sell. And so now you can go back to those people and just say, now that you understand that it's a psychological deal, you can understand that, you know, let's reapproach.
Yeah, yeah. There's no. It's interesting. There's very few things in the world that are finite. You know, it's interesting that so many people want to put an endpoint to everything. And again, there's very few things literally in the world that are finite, right? I mean, how many times have people that, you know, went through terrible, bitter divorces and end up back together, or a job and a boss you absolutely hated, and in 20 years in the future, you manage to reconnect again, and it's a great relationship. Again, very little is finite, and that's why I tell people all the time, be very judicious with the words no. You know, even a relationship with John and I say this all the time, a relationship with me is not infinite. There will be a period of time when John and I will not be together, whether it's circumstances or life or
Maybe
death
sooner than later.
Exactly, right? But nothing is infinite. But if you really invest in the understanding of the psychology of the relationship, we're just talking about sales. You could families and friends and interpersonal neighbors and everyone else. The same things that apply in a selling situation are the same things that apply in every interpersonal situation. Yeah. We're applying it to sales right now, but it has an application to everything. So we're going to go around the room. We'll start back in the back left corner. What did you get from today?
As she giggles.
As she giggles.
Well, it's just there was a lot there. So
you like went through like 5 pages. Like.
Yeah, I did.
Well, this
So,
was a special session because it went to second page.
Yeah, exactly.
On the
Yeah.
Etherpad.
Yeah. So no, I'm not going to put you on the spot.
The nostalgia, that was
Oh, nostalgia's big, huge. You know, and it's so interesting. And right now I see it so much in my grandsons and my granddaughter. Because I want to do all the things with them that I did with our daughter. I want to read the same books. I want to have the same experiences. And now there's almost no amount of money that I wouldn't put on that, right? You know, the person, again, and you use the Disney World example, or holidays, or a trip to grandma's, or, you know, anything like that. That nostalgia is such a strong tool that when you get there, it helps bring that defensive posture very down. And then you have the opportunity to now have a real legitimate conversation where you're not already down here trying to work your way up. And it's a great tool. Mitch?
I feel like the nostalgia is, they always remember how you
They do.
feel.
Right.
And
And even because you do roofs, and you'd think, well, how nostalgic can a roof be? And if you say, you know, is this your first house? And here's what they're going to say. No, they're going to tell you about the crappy little house that they had, but watch their smile. Watch their smile. Watch how the husband and wife look at each other. When they talk about the house that's a fraction of the size, a fraction of the cost, fraction of the quality, but that nostalgia just kicks them in. The first car, first Christmas, it is so palpable that the conversation after they tell you about the first house, it'll be hard for you not to make a sale.
how did you get started in your business? You know,
Anything.
And then then they feel obligated, and they see what you're doing, and they're on your side.
Absolutely,
But
sure.
but also I want to just point out, like in this case, Mitch spent an awful lot of time on my roof.
Yes.
You know, fixing
Yes.
my horrendous problems.
Yep.
I don't know, 2 years ago? A year ago? All right.
It just seems like
But-
longer.
But guess what? There's a new version of nostalgia, and that is how good you made me feel when you walked away. Finally, you know,
Absolutely.
that was you out of the driveway for the last time. Yeah, I need you back here soon, but But basically, you know, that feeling that you get, you can remind a repeat customer about how good they felt when
Absolutely.
when I was taking care of you.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's another version of nostalgia.
Yeah, absolutely. If people even if it's a problem, they remember it fixed. They're, you know, he and the wife are going to talk about the time when the roof leaked on the Thanksgiving turkey. Now, at the time, it was probably tragic, but now it's a point of it's funny, it's comic, it's a new twist into a common theme. Nostalgia is very, very, very strong. You watch when you see me with people. I'll have people come up and say, "My dad used to always wear suspenders." If you tell me your dad always wore suspenders, my next thing is you might as well take out your checkbook right now. Why? We just got there. We just got there. And it doesn't, no matter what, I would have to screw up so badly not to make that sale. Because I don't have to do anything. I'm just looking for all the clues and signs that are already there. David, what'd you get?
You know, when sort of creating the environment of the roles that we play as a salesperson and the customer, their roles, but remembering you're the expert and they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. And again, when you mentioned roles, and I mean, look at all, I met your wife and your children, right? I mean, you think of all the roles that we have, of just a normal person, you know, husband, father, wife, parent, neighbor, employer, employee. You've got like 30, 40 roles that you don't even think about. And each one of these roles defines you a little bit more. And then because of these definitions is where the tension. But if you took all that away, just the pure essence of you, you're perfect. You're perfect. You can't be anything else other than perfect when you remove everybody's roles. And that's why it's not do good, feel good. It's feel good and then do good. So that's a great takeaway. Simona, what'd you get?
I like what John had said when
Not me.
he talked about, well, you, but it's a combination of both. Where you guys said psychology of sales is all about how to feel good. And I think that's like a great paraphrase of everything and also like hearing this
Sure.
this teaching again, and then how you had said so much of selling is how you feel, and so much of buying is
Absolutely. Sure. They can't pay you enough to be miserable.
right.
You know, they can't, you know, but they also can't pay you enough to be happy. Right? Nobody could pay me enough to take a job and do stuff I don't want to. That would never ever happen. Why? Because I don't have to. I can have a perfect life and not have all that stuff happen. So again, yeah, it is kind of a blueprint of how to have, and that's why we say if you do a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's why you find the people that really, and you can see it. It's like they glow. You know, every industry, you could be a plumber and love plumbing, and you could just see these people glow. And when you're around that, oh my God, it's palpable. You can feel it. It's like static electricity. So yeah, this is how it makes you feel. Again, the first sale is made where? Right here. Right here. First sale's made your mind. Larry.
Definitely the feelings part, but also the identity versus role.
Mm-hmm.
And how powerful that is.
That's huge. That's huge because most of the people think they're here.
Right.
They're here, but they think they're here. That at leaster.
And the role changes that.
Absolutely, because you're perfect. If I take everything away from you, if everybody in the world has the same amount of money, same everything, everybody's exactly the same. All you have is the pure essence of you, which is perfect. It's when you heap all this other crap on it that it starts to go down. And I think the people, when they understand this, and I'll watch, giant crowds of people, and I'll do this, and you can just like watch it go bing, 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 bing. And it's like they get it. Because it's they're saying, I'm a terrible father, I'm a terrible husband, I'm a terrible neighbor, I'm a terrible employee, I suck as a boss, and blah, blah. And no wonder you feel bad about yourself. Who couldn't? And I'm like, what are you talking about, right? If you got rid of everything right now, right, just out of the blue, if you got rid of everything right now and sat on a beach at Bali, you got rid of everything. You sold your company, just got rid of everything. And you sat on the beach at Bali, and here's what you're going to be like. This ain't bad. This ain't bad. This ain't bad at all. I can handle this.
Sell everything she had and went to Costa Rica.
Absolutely. Sure. And I guarantee when you sell everything you have, her life is going to get easier with nothing. right? Look at all the people who give up their giant houses to go sit and live in a hut on a beach, right? Think about that. I got a buddy of mine that's got more money he could spend in 50 lifetimes. You know what he likes to do for a vacation? He would go to Isle Royale in northern Michigan, which is an island, and he would camp for 2 weeks, living off the land, right? Sleeping on a hard ground. He's got just a small tent, a mediocre sleeping bag at best, brings hardly any food with him. And that's what he calls fun. I'm like, you're a dumbass. My idea of roughing it is when room service ends at 10.
Yeah.
That's roughing it.
But it takes it back to his childhood.
It does, because he doesn't want anything. For him, vacation is get out of his giant house, get away from his money, get away from everybody. He takes his wife and his kids, and he gets away all the stuff that you would think you would run to, right? He doesn't want any of that. He wants to go and camp, and as rustic as he can, doesn't even bring food. Now think about that. When you got kids, that's probably a bad idea. But for him, that just makes the excitement, right? Yeah. Tell Mrs. Zavis she's going to be hungry at night. The excitement is me ducking hatchets. Exactly. What'd you get?
Well, I like it all. I mean, the idea to get them to the child place and join them there, to nurture them, to bring them to be comfortable so that you can help them
Absolutely.
make better choices
Yes.
for themselves.
Yes.
And you're guiding them, but they're really making the choice.
Oh, absolutely. They want to be guided. It's almost like they're like, they don't say these words, but it's like, take me there. So if you're talking to somebody about anything and you say, so when did you get involved with blank? Well, when I was 11. And then now they tell you the story about when they were 11 where they got involved with something, right? They're already there. You've already timed them back to here. You've connected with them again at that adaptive child stage. You're the expert, right? Problem solver looking for problems to solve. You naturally take that nurturing parent. And now they're that willing, adaptive, and open child. They want you to teach them. They know that you know more. They've had a long-term interest. They become 11 years old again, and you can see it happen all the time. So when I kiddingly say, and only partially kidding, when I say with the right application of bonfire and alcohol, I can make you 18 again, I actually will make you 18 again. I've had people that have had tons of problems and medical issues and problems and couldn't walk, and by the time they got done, they were walking. They were around, and maybe tomorrow they're going to feel terrible, right? But tonight, they don't have those problems. So much of what we are and is what we feel, right? It's the person that, it has nothing to live for and doesn't have a great life. And the reality is most of the stuff money can buy is not the stuff that keeps you alive. I don't care how rich you are. You're never going to make a sunset. You're never going to make a sunrise. It's all the stuff that's free.
I was just going to say, when you do identity and roles,
Mhm.
it's like all the roles that we take on in life, the associating role, that's who I am, that's,
Absolutely.
to be expected,
Mhm.
you're only going to go this far, or you're not going to
Sure.
go this far, so, really trying to get them to that 0 point or that one.
Sure. And they're there. Every person on the earth, I don't care from the craziest to the smartest, you're all one. If I take everything away from you, every role away from you, you can't help be a one. Every person is a one. It's the roles that we accept, not thrust upon us, accept, that are the burdensome things. And that's what makes it hard. That's why you're a good parent, you feel good about yourself. Your kid does something wrong of which you have no control of, they're adults, and you feel bad as a parent. Well, your kid did it. You did everything you could for the 18 formative years. Your neighbor, your spouse, your parents, so many people that have elderly parents, and they are so frustrated because the actions of the parents they feel reflect negatively on them. Well, if you allow it to reflect negatively on you, it will. And it's the roles that kill us. In sales, again, this is an environment of want, and that's why it's so critical. Because if you get your okayness from your success in sales, and we know success in sales is hard, your chances of getting your okayness, especially in this industry, and John, you can attest, this is hard. Frequently alone, frequently talking to people, even if it was half as much as they still don't want to pay for it. This is a hard road to hoe, especially if you're going here to get your needs met. you got a lot of problem. That's why I think, and I say this kiddingly, but anyone who knows me knows I think I'm fabulous. I really think I'm fabulous. And that to me isn't boastful, because that to me is just, at some point in time, this made sense to me. At some point in time, hopefully it'll make sense to everybody. It says, I'm fabulous. Don is I may not be the best father, right? I'm definitely probably not the best husband. I'm probably the best sales trainer, but there's other stuff I'm not the best at, right? But the idea is that when you get this and you wake up in the morning, your morning is filled with bright sunshine and birds. It's not one bleak episode that goes to the next bleak episode that goes to the next bleak episode. Surround yourself by people that have this. You can't help but pick up the glow. Absolutely, absolutely. What do we got here?
Me, my partner, is everything. I get so much energy just by being here. Like, it's like, okay.
It's like it's 10:30. Oh no!
I don't want to go. But obviously, nostalgia is something I have not taken advantage of in my career, mainly because this is what I do, selling homes. And I
But that's all nostalgia. But that's
all.
all nostalgia.
Number two, I'm a winner. I did not know that until today.
Hell yeah, you are. Who's better than you?
Me.
Absolutely. But hold on. But I want to caution one thing, because you said that selling a home is not nostalgia. Selling a home is all nostalgia. You know, why do you think they bake cookies? Do you have cookies in your open houses?
Sometimes.
Do you know why successful real estate agents have cookies baking, even though most of them get thrown out? Because when you go into a house with the smell of baking cookies, how do you feel? Right?
Feel
First,
home.
the last two
home.
houses we bought, you know the first thing Janet said when we walked in? This is the first thing she said. We bought our house in Bloomfield Hills. We walk in the front door. It's got this big, giant foyer. It's got this big circle stair. First thing she says, we're going to have to buy a 12-foot Christmas tree for right there. We bought the house in June. First thing she said was, we're going to have to buy a second Christmas tree, a 12-foot Christmas tree to go right there. We weren't in any other. She's already picking out where our Christmas, the most precious of Zavis things is the Christmas tree. She is now identifying the most precious of Zavis things. Right then and there, I was like, here, just take my wallet. Just take whatever you want. You don't have to show me. Mrs. Zavis has bought this house, and she's never not going to get it. I lose, period. We're going to live here. I have no choice.
You gotta sell to the wife that
Yes, but the nostalgia, it's the cookies, it's the flowers, it's the Christmas tree. It's when they stage a house and you look at how they stage it, and family pictures, and sometimes not even your family, they just happen to have a better smile than the pictures that you had. All these things contribute. House is nothing but nostalgia. Cars. You look at a lot of stuff in cars that's a throwback to 20, 30 years ago that has really no technical value. People just like it, right? Fins and chrome and sparkly things, and you know the Mustang emblem that hasn't changed since the mid-50s, right? That's big. That's big. That's what people sell. You look at, and again, you don't believe me, look at some of the car ads, right? You look at the newest Corvette ad. The new ad only gives 1/5 of the ad to the brand new 2023 Corvette. You know the first one they show? 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and then they come to us. And it says a proud heritage. It doesn't say cutting edge. It's not like Pepsi. For a new generation. Why? You don't want that. Because the guy that can spend $125,000 on the car, he wanted it when he was 16 in the 50s. And he couldn't afford it, right? The 16-year-old kid's not going to afford this car. It's the 16-year-old that was in the 60s. And now that's what he wanted. He earned that. All of his life, he's owed that. Now he's got the money, he's got the time, and all you had to do is connect the difference between the 16-year-old him and the 65-year-old him. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that everybody gets that. Because when you start to realize how it's used against you in the world, it's not that hard to realize that smart marketers understand this.
It doesn't matter that he has to now roll into the
It doesn't
Corvette
matter. Doesn't matter if his back's going to
roll
hurt,
out and
leg's
ro-
going to
and roll
hurt.
out onto his
right?
knees.
You know, he's going to have the car seat on the roof. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So, but you had one more point. I want to make sure I get that.
And another question, this is a question because right? And I haven't gotten the gist of it. I just moved into a new one. And obviously there's agents who have been there forever, but I've dealt with them. It's just, I don't understand how they do have that because maybe because they've been there for many, many years and I haven't in that community. But I'm like, I know I'm better. I just need to know how I can attack this because
Just keep thinking about
Well-
how to convert a house into a home.
Yeah, what makes it? I mean, you know, you and I talked, right? You speak Italian.
Yes.
I would love you for just that reason, right? No, really, I'm not kidding, right?
Molto
I'm Sicilian,
bene.
right? If you were trying to sell me a house, I said I was Sicilian, you said something Italian, be like, that's it. I don't need anything else. She's on my team. She's on my team. I don't need anything. That automatically propels her above everybody. And you might be the worst real estate. It doesn't make a difference. People don't make decisions. They make decisions emotionally. They justify it intellectually, but they decide emotionally. What you have to be able to figure out is in your world when you're talking to somebody, right in the beginning, right in the beginning of the relationship, what do they need to see or hear? What is it that allows you to shine on the sun of everyone else's brightness? And it isn't time, it isn't marketplace, it's not experience. None of those things mean anything. None of those things mean anything. People think, I've been doing this for 30 years. No, you've been doing it for 1 year 30 times over. So if you understand it, I don't have to, we often say, I don't have to know how to build a watch to sell a watch. And I could take somebody who's been in the industry for 30 years, I could be doing it for 1 year and I can do better than them. Why? Because they've had experience in the industry. I have experience in people. I have experience in people. If I have experience in people, that's it. Every dollar you've ever got, you got from somebody else. If you're an expert in people, you can sell anything. And people will and I know it sounds, people like, no, it's not true. People will give you money. They'll be like, here, just take it, right? And it's so weird when you get to that point because it's like, it shouldn't happen. Like, I should have to work hard to get what I have. Because when I was young, I was like, well, I got to work really hard. Right? And now I'm older, I'm like, well, that was stupid. I wish I wouldn't have thought like that. I like this way better. You'll get there. It may not happen today, all right, and it may not happen tomorrow. You will get there, and the way you get there is exposure. You keep hearing it, you keep seeing it. By the way, did you see what I just did to her? Softening statement. I said you're going to get there. It might not be today, may not be tomorrow, but you're going to get there. And I say it in an authoritative way because why? I'm the nurturing parent. Right now, because she's sitting in a class that I'm teaching, she's already identified herself as the adaptive child. I can make her feel better. Even in the greatest pit of a despair, I can make her feel better if you understand how to do it. Now, I don't mean to pick you out, and this isn't therapy. But again, professional salespeople understand these things. And I think that's what positions them differently. You have last word, Joe.
I take exception with the word nostalgia.
Okay.
I can't quite come up with the right word, but I love the concept because what you're doing is you're making the person feel themselves in
Yes.
whatever you're
Yes.
trying to set
Yeah.
up. And identity versus role model.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
I think I have not really ever heard that.
Well, this is unique to John and I in terms of the particular concept. There are variations of this that are floating around. Much of what we talk about is psychiatric and psychological. We apply it in sales, and a lot of times to apply it in a selling situation, we have to manipulate it so it makes sense, right? There's more to this than just what you thought, you know, just what you were exposed to, and we can do an entire session on this if you want. But this is the most critical part. It's an understanding that you're not broken. You're not missing anything. You're not terrible. You're not unloved. You're not, you know, everybody has these ideas about themselves, right? Nobody likes me. Nobody. Well, if you're the only person on earth, there's nobody to like you or not like you, right? You're perfect. You know, you're absolutely neutral, right? And the idea is, again, every person is a perfect being. You're not missing anything. It's not like you need 6 more ears or 5 more eyes or anything. You have everything you need to be amazing. So that's perfect. So thank you, Joan. John, would you like to say goodbye to our audience? Oh, we're a couple minutes behind. Sorry about that.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Unique in his brevity. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. Good selling.